The NFL MVP award is one of the hardest awards to win in major sports. However, in today's video, I want to talk about the 5 NFL players who are destined to win their first NFL MVP award in the coming years. Now, before I get into my top 5 list, I did want to hand out 4 honorable mentions. I know that's a lot of honorable mentions, but I think these guys at least deserve a mention in today's video. The 4 mentions I want to talk about are going to be Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott, Anthony Richardson, and Justin Herbert. For Brock Purdy, I just don't think he's ever going to get national respect because of how good the team is around him, but he's very young and very talented and has already proven to be able to play at that level, so we'll have to give him a bit of a chance to see if he can win one. For Dak Prescott, I think if he's going to win an MVP, I think it's going to come either this year or within the next couple years because he has a pretty good roster around him in Dallas, and the offense is going to completely run through Dak Prescott and his arm. So if he has a good season this year, I think he's definitely going to be in the running just as he was last year. Then there's Anthony Richardson. This one is an extremely biased take by me. I'm a big Anthony Richardson fan, and I think he has the level of talent to get to him to that spot. I definitely don't think it's going to happen next year, but I think within the next 10 years, if he stays healthy, he has a chance. And lastly, Justin Herbert. I think he was the closest player to making this list that was left off of the list. For Justin Herbert, I think he is ridiculously talented and arguably better than some of the quarterbacks that I have in this list, but the situation around him right now doesn't really give him a fair chance of winning the MVP award as of today, but after maybe 5 or 6 years, I definitely think he'll be in the conversations pretty consistently. But with that all being said, if you go on to enjoy today's video, I think you guys will enjoy my channel, so hit the like and subscribe button. But with that being said, let's hop into the list. Coming in at number 5, we'll be discussing Jalen Hurts of the Philadelphia Eagles. For his career, he has 11,764 passing yards for 67 touchdowns and 34 interceptions. Now, I realize that Jalen Hurts is arguably not a better quarterback than some of the quarterbacks that I had mentioned in the honorable mentions list, but I do feel as if that Jalen Hurts has already shown the ability to get to that MVP level, and because of the team that he is surrounded by, I do think that he's going to have a really good shot at winning it within the next couple years. Surrounding Jalen Hurts on this Eagles team is one of, if not the best offensive lines in the entire NFL, a dominant set of wide receivers with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, not to mention Dallas Goedert. This year, he brings in Saquon Barkley to really just solidify how dominant this offense should be the next couple years. And defensively speaking, it's good enough to lead a team to a really positive record. Jalen Hurts was already in MVP conversations back in 2022 when arguably had he stayed healthy, he would have won the award. So I do feel as if that we have to at least mention him in this video and at least put him in the list because we've already seen him get to that level and arguably almost come this close to winning an MVP award. But after the injury came on, it obviously wasn't deserving to go to somebody else. So what can Jalen Hurts do to win the MVP award? Well, I think he has kind of a smaller window in comparison to some of these other quarterbacks on this list, because I don't think this Eagles team is going to be able to keep all the pieces around Jalen Hurts to make him an MVP level quarterback. That's not to say that the Eagles are going to fall off a cliff within 5 years. They won't. There'll still be a dominant team, and Jalen Hurts will lead them to many, many good records. But I do think the window of this team being Super Bowl caliber like they are now may be a little bit smaller than their window of just being a really good team. I do feel as if Jalen Hurts will be in the conversations at certain point this season, and I do think for the next maybe 2-3 years he's going to have a legitimate chance to win his first MVP. All he really needs to do is have similar statistics to what he did in 2022, maybe just improve upon some of his just turnover issues and maybe some more passing yards and maybe some more touchdowns, but I don't feel as if it has to be that major of a change. The only thing that will hold him back will be the turnovers because he had a bunch of them in 2023. If he can limit those to like he did in 2022 or 2021, I think he's going to be in for an MVP-like season. So all in all, I don't know when he's going to win an MVP award, but I do think he'll be in the conversations. But let's go ahead and hop into number 4, which is going to be Jordan Love of the Green Bay Packers. Now, similar to Anthony Richardson, we don't really have a big enough sample size to definitively say that Jordan Love will win an MVP award at some point. But after what I saw in the back half of last year and heading into the playoffs, I saw a quarterback in Jordan Love that has the potential to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. So with that being said, I do think he'll have a chance to win some MVPs. And you can make the argument that had Jordan Love played like he did in the back half of the season for the entire season, that he probably would have ran away with the MVP award. For his career, he has 4,765 passing yards, 35 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions. And the majority of those stats did come in 2023 when he had 4,159 passing yards, 32 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. And the majority of those 11 interceptions did come extremely early in the season, so I do feel as if he is in for a big time year if he's able to play like he did again in the back half of the season for an entire season. On this Green Bay Packers team, I do think that you see a recipe for this team to be really awesome the next couple years. They have an awesome set of wide receivers that may lack the star power of like a CD, AJ, Jamar, Tyreek type of guy, but they all play a complementary role to one another, and I do think that there is some pretty star potential level in those guys. I just don't know if they'll ever be able to achieve it. He also has a couple tight ends who I think are pretty good players too, who I think will maybe develop into becoming something at some point. The offensive line is currently going through a bit of a retooling phase. It's still a good offensive line, but it's going to become a great offensive line within the next couple years. Running back wise, you brought in Josh Jacobs to help you out this year. If he plays like he did a couple years ago, we're talking about maybe the best running back in the league. And defensively speaking, with the additions of Xavier McKinney and some other pieces, I do think that defense is in for a big bounce back year after last year. So I think surrounding Jordan Love is a pretty solid set of players that can help him, but I think the big thing that elevates Jordan Love to being an MVP-like guy is going to be his head coach. Matt LaFleur, to me, is one of the best minds we have in the league today. He's an offensive genius, and whenever you have a quarterback like an Aaron Rodgers and a Jordan Love, it really does make his job a tad bit easier. I do expect Jordan Love to have a big season in 2024. I think that he should be able to replicate what we saw late in last year, the entire season, and if he does, I think he has a very good chance of winning an NFL MVP. Next up at number 3, we'll be discussing Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, this is a kind of risky pick in my opinion because we've already seen Joe Burrow play a couple years, and thus far through his career really has never been considered a serious contender for an MVP award. But I do think at some point he's going to get a bunch more consideration for this award because I think he's having too good of a career, one healthy, to not have him at least in the conversations for the next couple awards. For his career, and keep in mind he did miss games in his rookie year and this most recent year, but for his career, he has 14,083 passing yards, 97 touchdowns, and 37 interceptions. And he had a really good 2-year stretch between 2021 and 2022 where he was really dominant out there on the field. This is a Bengals team that has already shown the ability to make it all the way to the Super Bowl, so it's not like this team is going to go anywhere. So the team's success will be there and will allow him to win that award. For me, it really just comes down to, can Joe Burrow stay healthy, and can Joe Burrow elevate his game higher than some of the players on this list, either the names I've already listed or some of the names I'm going to be talking about in the future. But he also has to elevate his game above guys like Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes, who have already won MVPs. Joe Burrow has all the physical intangibles. He has everything that you want in a quarterback. Again, like I mentioned earlier, he has the team and support system around him to get him to that point. For Joe Burrow, it all really just comes down to him putting it all together in one big season, and he has to stay healthy. Because in 2022 and 2021, when he was healthy, he put together some awesome seasons where he had over 4,000 passing yards and over 30 touchdowns. A little bit high on the interception count, but it's okay. So again, as I mentioned, for him to get to that point of winning an MVP and being considered a serious contender to win that MVP award, he's got to put it all together, which he hasn't quite yet done so, at least to the highest degree that we think Joe Burrow can. Again, one healthy Joe Burrow is a fairly consensus top 5 player in the quarterback position, and I do think as long as he's considered that level of a guy, he's always going to have a chance to win an MVP award. I think it all just comes down to him putting it all together in one massive season. That could be this upcoming season, or that could be 5 years down the line. I think Joe Burrow has a very solid chance of at least winning one MVP before his career is over with. Coming in at number 2, we'll be discussing Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills. Now, unfortunately, the Buffalo Bills window of contention does feel like it's kind of dwindling at this point, but that's not because of Josh Allen. Josh Allen has put together a fantastic stretch of seasons the past like 5 years now. For his career, he has 22,703 passing yards, 167 touchdowns, and 78 interceptions. And I think that's really the only thing that's going to consistently hold Josh Allen back from being considered a comparable quarterback to Patrick Mahomes is the turnover issues that he does struggle with. If Josh Allen would just limit his interceptions to like less than 10 per season or around 10 a season, we're talking about a guy that could easily be compared to Patrick Mahomes a lot more often. But because of the inconsistent play at certain points in his career and because of the interception issue, oftentimes we do have Josh Allen labeled a tier below Patrick Mahomes, which I do think is the right way to talk about it. But again, if Josh Allen can just break the curse of him consistently struggling with interceptions, this dude is a ridiculously good and talented player that he could be compared to a Patrick Mahomes, who has obviously won a couple MVPs in his career. Last year, I felt like was sort of the last hurrah of that Buffalo Bills team that we have seen the past several years. They had a big season where they struggled at certain points and then came back and bounced back, and then had a duel with Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs before falling short yet again. And now they're kind of transitioning to a lot of new pieces and a lot of retooling of different positions positions, and I do think this team is still a competent roster and still could easily make the playoffs, but I don't really know if they're going to have the same level of team success that we have seen the past couple years. Again, that's not to say that he's not going to ever have that same level of success throughout his career, because this is only a 28-year-old quarterback, and I think he easily has probably another 10 seasons in him. So within these potential 10 seasons, all we got to expect from him is to have at least maybe 5 really good seasons and 5 just like decent seasons. And within those 5 really good seasons, I think those are his best chances to win an MVP award. And when you are a talent like Josh Allen, you're always going to be in the conversations, honestly, regardless of your team success. So he's going to have plenty of opportunities to get to that MVP award, and I do think he will end up with at least one before his career is done with. But at number 1, I think we all know where I'm going with this one. I'm going to be talking about CJ Stroud of the Houston Texans. Again, kind of like Anthony Richardson and Jordan Love, this one might be extremely early to already say that he's an MVP level guy, especially in front of some of the names that I've mentioned in this video. But in his just rookie season, we saw maybe arguably the best rookie seasons we've seen ever. I think that there are some other guys out there who had similar seasons, like a Dak Prescott, even Justin Herbert had a really good rookie season. But I think the way that we saw CJ Stroud just play the game at such a high level makes him somebody who's easily capable of winning a couple MVPs throughout his career. I think it also does help CJ Stroud's case for winning an MVP because he really does have the backing of the national media. Similar to some guys like Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, who the media loves for obviously good reason, the media does love them some CJ Stroud. So he's going to get the national attention, and when he plays at a very high level, it's going to be elevated in front of the line over some of the quarterbacks on this list. For example, if somebody like, let's say, Joe Burrow goes out there and throws for 300 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions, and CJ Stroud does the exact same thing, I think it's more likely that Stroud is going to be mentioned more often in the national media on apps like SportsCenter, ESPN, and on different various media coverage websites and forums. It's likely that Stroud is going to get elevated slightly higher than somebody like Joe Burrow. In Stroud's rookie season, he threw for 4,108 passing yards, 23 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions, and basically single-handedly, with a couple other pieces such as the coach and many other players, but they resurrected that Houston Texans team. They were one of the worst teams in the NFL for many, many, many years, and he resurrected them to be a relevant team that can make it to the second round of the playoffs and now has an extremely bright future. So I think with all those things being said, the national media, the team success, the abilities of CJ Stroud, we're talking about somebody who easily could win an MVP award next year and for the remaining of his career. Again, we're talking about a 22-year-old quarterback that's coming off his first NFL season. I think he has unlimited potential and a bunch of really good pieces around him to get him to that point. The only thing that's really holding back CJ Stroud from maybe being considered a more serious contender for MVP this upcoming season is because of how young he is. But I think because of how dominant he was in his rookie year, barring some sort of sophomore slump, Stroud's going to be in for a big year. But if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe button. And if I missed any names on this list, let me know in the comment section below. But I love you guys. Peace.